Hello, welcome to our channels. This is our lecture 2 of Introduction to Mechatronics. In this topic we will see about classification of sensors. As you know, sensor is a wide topic, and this sensor or this sensor instrument or this measurement device, we can divide it depend on different criteria. One of the depend on the criteria, we can classify them into varied forms. The first one is active and passive sensors. In the first classification of sensors, they are divided into active and passive. Active sensor and passive sensor. This active sensor is self-generating. Does not be self-generating with means this sensor type does not want or does not need an external port for operate. This means it is just self-generating. It can generate power by itself. Active sensor self-generating does not require power for its operation. For example, thermocouple. Thermocouple does not need any external powers. Okay, the next one is passive sensors. Passive sensor is external power. It needs an external power or supplies. This means it doesn't generate an electric or power by itself. For example, photodiode, and we can also say strain gauge. We will see in details about both these active and passive sensors, because where we want to select sensors, we have to consider this either active or passive. Is it need an electric power or external power supply or not? Because this one is determines either to buy or use, select or not. The next one or the next classification, second classification of sensor is either analog or digital. This analog or digital sensor, it determines. I think you can take this as course digital signal processing. Analog sensor produces analog output. This one means it can have infinite or continuous output signals, or this one have a continuous or infinite points. The digital one have only a discrete or on-off or a finite or discrete one. In contrast to one, there are contrast discrete or okay. Let's read this one. Then the type of analog sensor is LDR, light detection resistor. Strain gauge digital. This digital one is in contrast to analog, work with discrete or digital data. The data in digital sensor, which is used to conversion and transmission, is digital in nature. These both are IR and PIR. Another type of digital sensors, analog sensor, is LDR and strain gauge. The third classification of sensor. The third classification of sensor is primary or secondary. This one also the basic ones. The primary one is contain mechanical as well as electrical devices. It contains both mechanical and electrical devices. It usually converts physical quantity to measured into mechanical signals. The secondary one introduces cascade of primary. This one includes so many primary ones. This one converts mechanical into comprehensive electrical ones. This one is physical quantity to be measured mechanical. This one is mechanical signal into compressive electrical signal. Type of this primarily bounded tube used to measure pressures. We will see in detail in next classes. And LVDT is the secondary sensor. LVDT use this type of sensor used to measure, for example, it used to measure the displacement. This one is one of inductive type of displacement measured sensors. We will see in detail this one in this class. We see the classification of sensors. The first classification of sensor is active and passive. The second one is analog and digital. The third one is primary sensor and secondary sensors. The active and the passive is depend on requirement of power supplies from external or either self-generated. We see in the first classification, the analog, the second one or the another one of classification of sensor is either analog or digital ones. This analog and the digital one is classified based on either produces analog signal or produces digital signals. Depend on this, we classify the sensor into analog or digital ones. The second one is the third one, the final one is the primary and secondary. This one is just I tell you the primary one is just direct measuring the detected physical quantities, and the second one is after detecting that it can transform or transmit into another devices to detect or measure that quantities. This one is the classification of sensors. We will see in next classes or third lectures. We will see the selection of sensors, and we will understand, or we will see in details what is displacement sensor, what is motion sensor, what is force sensor. We will explain in these channels. If you forget, please don't forget to subscribe, like, share our channels. Thank you.